The Saka world-class label has come under fire. Meanwhile, Nottingham Forest's Mateta bid is diabolical work. Cole Palmer unveils an interesting logo. And why on earth did Chelsea still not have a shirt sponsor? This is DMAC Daily. You know, I think the Saka slander is unfair, guys. In the right environment, I truly believe he'd be a world-class left back. Now, I do kid to all the gooners out there, but this past weekend has only reignited a legitimate debate surrounding Arsenal's Starboy. Many think he's overrated, that his performances, particularly against the biggest teams, are not worthy of truly elite status. Others vehemently disagree, suggesting that Saka's displays for the last 4 years or so have been for the most part phenomenal, and that he's just suffering from a bad run of form. Now, if you look at Saka's numbers in the Premier League since he first burst onto the scene way back in 2019, year on year, he became more prolific for 6 straight seasons before taking a slight dip in 24-25 and continuing that regression this campaign. Now, obviously, statistics alone does not define a winger's overall quality, but in the case of Saka, it's somewhat hard to ignore the data because his playing style is emblematic of the typical modern day winger. With less emphasis on the entertainment factor and being a 1v1 specialist, Saka has largely built his reputation due to ruthless efficiency, methodical in his approach, scoring and assisting consistently. That's not to say he hasn't scored some bangers over the years, but he's the type of player that understands his individual role in a broader system and is often risk-averse in his nature. Ironically, this kind of mentality seems to be the collective consensus of Arteta's Arsenal. Every individual has a specific role to play and to ultimately trust in the system. When it works, it's great. When Arsenal are top of the league, cooking teams primarily through set-piece dominance, the fans can get behind it, even if it isn't the most entertaining brand of football. The second results deviate, however, dissatisfaction seeps in quick, which is very similar to the stagnation of Saka in many ways, right? Because when he's prolific, that's Arsenal's Starboy. When he's gone 13 games without a goal, then it's suddenly fraud watch. For the record, he hasn't been terrible this season. In fact, he's still been Arsenal's equal most prolific player in a team that's top of both the Prem, the UCL group phase, and is closing in on a cup final. But for someone who's been lauded as their generational talent for years, with the expectation that he'll inevitably spearhead a new era of success whilst earning a whopping 300 grand a week right now, you best believe he'll be on the receiving end of criticism the second results deviate. Now, do I think he's world class? Well, who cares what I think? It's a subjective label anyways. The facts are that his reputation is of the highest caliber. He's basically a veteran for club and country at 24. I fully expect him to be a key player in Tuchel's England team at the World Cup too. But the lack of silverware and big game moments throughout his career thus far is a legitimate criticism. Until that changes, the debate, the slander will probably continue. Staying in the Premier League, and this Forest Mateta bid is genuinely insane. Granted, these two clubs aren't by any means historical rivals, but make no mistake, they hate each other. For context, Crystal Palace, having won the FA Cup last summer, qualified for the Europa League, a club-first achievement. But UEFA then launched a probe into their ownership structure because of John Textor's Eagle Football Group, who yielded a 44% stake at Palace, simultaneously owned French club Lyon. Under UEFA's multi-club ownership guidelines, two clubs under the same owner cannot compete in the same competition, with the team finishing lower in their respective league to be kicked out. In this instance, it would be Palace. Then, sensing an opportunity, Conference League qualifiers Nottingham Forest formally lobbied UEFA to take Palace's spot and were ultimately successful. So Palace understandably despised this club. Now, 8 months later, and the situation at Palace has since deteriorated. They got knocked out of the FA Cup by a 6th tier team. Their captain then departed last week. Their manager is set to step down at the season's end. They're winless in their last 8 league games, and now Mateta wants to leave. Juventus launched a bid which was swiftly rejected, whilst Villa are also reportedly keeping tabs. But all the while, Nottingham Forest bid a cheeky 35 mil on the Frenchman. Now, on principle alone, many Palace fans will be entirely against this transfer going ahead, but at the same time, this is an out-of-form striker who wants to leave and has got less than 18 months remaining on his contract. Maybe for £40 million? it's not the worst idea selling. David Ornstein's reporting that a sale is dependent on landing a replacement, such as Jorgen Strand Larsen from Wolves. From Forest's perspective, it's an interesting one. They already have 4 target men on the books following Lorenzo Luca's arrival, proper Sean Dyche ball, but with Chris Wood out for an extended period of time, maybe Mateta is a sensible addition. Either way, an audacious move from Forest. Meanwhile, what on earth is happening at Chelsea Football Club in regards to their front of shirt sponsors or lack of? It's been over 2.5 years since their last permanent sponsor 3 departed, and ever since it's been a total mess. Understand, a front of shirt sponsorship is typically the single most valuable commercial asset for elite teams. Manchester United's current deal with Snapdragon is worth around £56 million per year. Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal all operate in a similar band of 40 to 55 mil annual deals. Now multiply that to a standard 4 or 5 year contract, and that equates to around 200 to 250 million pounds in guaranteed income. Chelsea, on the other hand, have spent most of the past 2 seasons with no permanent sponsor at all. Short stopgaps with Infinite Athlete and my personal favorite Damac covered only brief periods and delivered a fraction of market value. Realistically, Chelsea have forfeited around 80 to 100 million pounds in lost revenue since 3 departed in 2023. Now that money might be pocket change for their multi-billionaire ownership, but that lack of money directly affects their spending power, wage flexibility, and compliance with PSR rules. This matters because Chelsea's commercial revenues now trail their direct rivals by a wide margin. Deloitte's latest Football Money League places Chelsea on 201 million pounds, more than 60 mil behind the likes of United, City, Liverpool, Arsenal, and Tottenham. Now, in fairness to Chelsea, negotiating a deal hasn't been that easy in recent years, from Abramovich having to sell amidst geopolitical pressure to the initial chaos of Blueco's takeover. Sponsors became wary of reputational risk being associated with Chelsea. There was one brand that was interested in a deal, Gambling Company Stake, but following strong opposition from Chelsea's supporters trust, the deal was scrapped entirely. Now, whilst I'm in full support to that particular decision, in the big 2026, something needs to change drastically. As Club World Cup champions competing in the UCL, this is a terrible look. According to The Athletic, Chelsea are in no rush to secure a sponsor, but respectfully, that's a load of bollocks. This shirt sponsorship hiatus is well and truly hurting the club, its brand, its prestige, its reputation. It's a bad look no matter how you try to spin it. Speaking of Chelsea, and their prized playmaker Cole Palmer has announced his brand new personal logo 3 months after trademarking his nickname Cold Palmer. Now, this isn't a new phenomena. Trademarking, the likes of Ronaldo, Messi, David Beckham, even Jude Bellingham all have trademarked intellectual property. Palmer was simply capitalizing on his own hype and that celebration, which ironically he didn't even come up with. It was his former teammate Morgan Rogers. But anyways, he has since unveiled his own logo, and whilst I will admit it is genuinely one of the more innovative logos out there in terms of the design's relevance, it's his initials that make it kinda awkward. I don't know, for me, I just don't think that Cole needed to be abbreviated, particularly with the last name Palmer. But according to the man himself, quote, less is more. Let me know your thoughts on it all below though. I'm curious to see what you guys think. Switching gears to transfer news, and following Dro Fernandez's €8 million move to PSG, Barca are planning a quadruple signing, starting with 16-year-old Norwich wonderkid AJ Tavares, Egyptian talent Hamza Abdelkarim, Genks Joensley Ownstein, and Defensor Sporting's Patricio Pacifico. All 4 are expected to link up with Barca's B team. Over in South America, and Flamengo look destined to sign Lucas Paqueta in the next few days with a €41 million deal in the works. Crazy to see a Brazilian in his prime leave the Premier League for the Brasileirão. Elsewhere in Brazil, and John is headed to Zenit St. Petersburg for 20 mil. What an iconic Brazilian name that is. Over in Italy, and Daniele Maldini is on his way to Lazio on loan with a €14 million buy option. Bournemouth are 2 matches away from triggering the automatic purchase of Alex Jimenez for €19.5 million. Now, this deal is interesting because Madrid actually sold him to Milan in 2024 for 5 mil, but retained a future purchase and selling clause. According to The Athletic, Milan will receive the first 5 mil of this transfer, and the remainder of the money will be split 50-50 between Milan and Madrid. So I guess all 3 parties kind of win, although I think Bournemouth inevitably come out on top, as they'll probably sell Jimenez in a few years' time time for like triple that amount. He's an outstanding fullback. Liverpool have signed upcoming Austrian centre-back Ifeanyi Ndukwe from Austria Vienna for £3 million. He'll arrive in the summer of 2026. Marcelo's own son, Enzo Alves, just signed his first pro contract with Madrid. Speaking of contracts, Fermin Lopez is set to sign a new deal with Barca till 2031, which will be music to the ears of Barcelona fans. The same could be said for Milan, as club captain Mike Maignan is also expected to renew till 2031 too. A huge deal for the Rossoneri, as his contract was up in the summer. Anyways guys, that's all for today's DMAC Daily. I'll catch you tomorrow.